Hey everyone, take a listen to this message from our sponsor SmartBear. Whether you want to load test your APIs or browser-based applications, you need to be able to easily scale up volume and identify problem areas. With Load UI and Load UI Web, SmartBear has you covered. Load UI is rockstar of API load testing. Using an intuitive, versatile design, Load UI gives you the power to scale up and out, letting you dial up high volume and real-world load from any number of local and remote computers. With Load UI, it's easy to create and configure tests incorporating all of your OS, application, database, statistics agentlessly. It's fully interactive too, so you can easily modify your tests and fix errors on the fly. Load UI Web is an astonishingly easy-to-use load testing tool for HTML, AJAX, and rich internet applications. Using a browser to naturally record your interactions with your website or app, you can scale up the number of virtual users, monitor server resources during test execution, and even distribute your tests geographically. Reports and charts make it a breeze to explore aspects of how your site or app performs under pressure, and ultimately pinpoint performance issues proactively. Load UI and Load UI Web by SmartBear ensure outstanding performance across your entire web stack.
It's time for PerfBytes.
What the is PerfBytes?
The fourth square meal of the day. Don't book like PerfBytes. Waffles, microwave ready. Blah blah blah. Blah blah.
Add nutritional value to your brain.
It's time for PerfBytes with your hosts Mark Tomlinson and James Pulley.
PerfBytes.
Whatever.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of PerfBytes. And little did folks know that perhaps just through the natural order of things, James, that, you know, there's busyness, there's things. We've kind of been on a little summer break from PerfBytes. People have probably been waiting for an episode for quite a while now, right?
Well, I got to say, Mark, when you were down here for the 4th of July, that was kind of an epic episode. It was we're like 3 hours back to back, and yeah, there was an awful lot of alcohol and cheese consumed, I'm afraid, at that episode.
Yeah, that's true. And the combination of single malt scotch and cheese can get to you. But I felt it was important that we do a trilogy, the PerfBytes Barbecue Trilogy, 2014 4th of July, which was marvelous, by the way. Thank you again for hosting.
Yeah, I've been told the horseradish blueberry cheddar must become a standard at the event.
It was fantastic. Yeah. But a trilogy, you think Star Wars, right? Now, Star Wars is going to have like 9 episodes, right? But the first 3 were the classic and then episodes. And then you've got Tolkien, after, you know, in The Lord of the Rings, there's a trilogy, perfect trilogy, right? Godfather, parts 1, 2, 3, trilogy. And PerfBytes, we didn't have a trilogy.
Well, how do you explain the drunk Wookiee?
Well, I mean, I think there were several different influences, right? Now, one, if Greg Kudas is there, he's kind of the godfather, right? The godfather of Windows Update. So we had Godfather represented. And then if you're the Wookiee, represents Star Wars, the trilogy. So Chewbacca in those 3. I'm thinking of, what was the other? Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And we missed a rather obscure reference to like Space 1999, you know, that TV show from the early 1970s. But, you know.
Yes.
I think we can pick that up next year.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But there's actually been a lot of things going on. We're happy to be back. But James, in the meantime, in the last month or so, you drove what, 700,000 miles around the United States? Is that right?
Yeah, something like that, Mark. I actually drove coast to coast, visiting some clients, seeing some colleagues. It was roughly 7,000 miles in 14 days. I saw Crater Lake.
Cool.
I saw Portland. I saw San Francisco.
Yes.
Hey, I even had lunch with the guys at Simstar.
Very cool. How was you saw Brad?
I saw Brad. Brad and I have a great conversation over Mexican food directly across the street from their offices. We chatted about his GTO, which is under construction.
Yes.
Both he and I are kind of, we have some 40 weight, I think, running through the veins.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a great drive. I got to tell you, there is something really invigorating about being someplace where the phone cannot ring, and you are really looking at just the astonishing beauty of the American landscape for thousands of miles. There's something very relaxing about that.
Now let's not nix out Canada and Mexico, because they're part of the North American continent here, and they're equally beautiful. In fact, Banff, Canada. Have you gone to Canada yet?
I have not done the transcontinental inside of Canada. I understand the way to do that is actually take the train, go up through Chicago, get the train, and take the train all the way out to Vancouver.
Yeah, but sometimes, like trains, they take you, unfortunately, is a beautiful way to go, but you don't have to drive. You can drink a couple beers and watch the things go by. But trains still, even in Canada, they go through kind of the crappy parts of town. When you're driving, you're in full control. If you see something beautiful, you can stop and take pictures and hang out. Plus, there's probably PerfBytes listeners in Canada that are dying for us to make a trip. Maybe do something like in Toronto. You could see Susan St. Clair.
Oh,
right?
Well, maybe we'll have to do a road trip for our Canadian listeners then.
Anyway, awesome. So it was a good trip. You drove safely. Did you transport any liquors from abroad? Did you bring?
I am not allowed to talk about that, Mark. Because if you transport more than just a few liters across state lines, that's bootlegging.
It is bootlegging.
It's called?
Yeah, that's bootleg. Why not bootlegging? I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. I transported some olive oil from the West Coast. So that
highly expensive
I will
single malt olive oil. The other news thing, James, you heard about this thing from outer space, that there's microbial shrimp-like plankton on the outside of the International Space Station. Did you hear about this?
I heard about this, and it deals with something related to the air currents and picking up these items in evaporation at the sea surface level, and then it being foisted into the upper atmosphere, and then all of a sudden they land on the International Space Station.
And the question is, were they living while they were out in outer space?
Or were they dormant and could be revived?
Yeah, or do you mean like the mosquito in an amber?
Or it's in a suspended state, it's plankton, it's a single-celled organism.
Well, suspended state, that could be like Sigourney Weaver. That's in Alien, right?
Good point. We got to dust her off for the next Alien movie series.
But those would be really, really small little aliens like plankton.
So if they could be frozen and revived, how long can they be in that dormant state?
I don't know, because they're exposed to radiation too. So by the time they get reanimated, DNA is going to be totally manipulated, weird. And then that's where the alien comes from, some weird radiation monster. I saw Prometheus. That was a weird hybrid looking crazy thing that like octopus.
Well, I think there are a couple of areas where these kind of cross, even in the lower atmosphere. Viruses that are in suspended animation in permafrost in northern climates. Might we be looking at the 1912 influenza epidemic come back? It's in the permafrost, it's in bodies that were buried, or other items. That's kind of scary.
It is. I'm a little bit scared. I saw these giant holes opening up. There's a giant crater, and they're saying that it's like thawing of the permafrost or the layer, and then it explodes gases, methane or whatever, and creates this giant crater in the middle of Russia somewhere.
No. I've got a theory on that.
Just some guy went nuts with a rototiller or something?
No, fraternity prank lighting farts.
Okay, we have humor here on PerfBytes just for the fun of humor, and there's sort of a lower bar on the kinds of humor that we reference. And we even talk about pornography and all sorts of things in a professional perspective. But I think you just crossed the line in terms of sort of the low bar for like fart humor.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Okay, but I don't think there was a gaseous cause from a Homo sapien or otherwise that caused that. It's actually trap methane.
So Mark, I think on that note, let's take a positive change. Let's talk about our new sponsors and Let's hit this first topic, which I think is going to be kind of interesting to people, which is the subject of certifications and testers.
Yeah. So, for those of you that were not going, and there's not a lot of performance people that go to this, the Association of Software Testers, the CAST conference. Now, some of you that are maybe QA managers or managers of software testing teams or dev and testing teams might cross over and go to this CAST conference. It was in New York City. I was there teaching a workshop actually on performance analysis, one of the only performance related sessions that was there. Great bunch of people. Really, some of the top names I met, hung out with James Bach, talked with Karen Johnson, saw our friends Eric Pergler, you remember Eric, and Mike Lyles was there. Yeah. Anyway, at CAST, there was a session by James Christie, who's from Scotland, I believe, and northern Scotland, I think. And he gave a presentation, and I unfortunately missed it, but I heard from all these great people. Eric was telling me it's had a lot to do. It's just the room was just alive with people talking about this new ISO certification, which is the ISO, or you could call it the ISO IEEE 29119 software testing. Now, the whole testing community is abuzz on this. You saw it on Rosie Sherry's website, Ministry of Testing. And of course, it's on Karen Johnson's, KarenNicoleJohnson.com, I think it is. But you can also find out more as a reaction from the body. There's two things happening. One, there's an AST special interest group that's going after what is a testing certification. And if so, if there is an international agreed upon standard as to what software testing is, then we're defining the things that are not software testing, which, as you might imagine, James, you and I describe performance testing in 47 episodes, way more than most people even imagined this topic could go, the depth of this topic. There's no way you're going to get what we've built just in these PerfBytes episodes into a definition for software testing as a certification. God forbid some legislator who or a congressperson in the United States who wants to put out some law against the next healthcare.gov from ever happening would grab this standard and say, that's what we're going to do. When the real fear, and this is my fear, James, is that the definition of the software testing, according to the ISO, is the same kind of quality of talent or behaviors or disciplines or lack thereof that led them to build such a catastrophic website.
I want to go on record as saying I'm not against all standards. I know I kind of come off as a curmudgeon on a lot of occasions. It's like, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. I have a problem with this. But let's take an example of a certification that I think is fantastic. That would be the CISSP. It is a security certification. It existed long before there was an ANSI and an ISO equivalent to the certification. But the things that I really like about this certification is it's on the individual. It mandates that you have 6 months of actual hands-on practicum in the profession before you can sit for the exam.
Right.
And there's a body of knowledge, which includes, I think it's 7 or 8 core disciplines, and you have to have like half of them in order to certify. You don't have to be competent in all of them, but you have to be competent in several of the core competencies, and then you sit for the exam on it. It's not unlike an accounting exam in that respect, where you have your core discipline, your specialization, your internship, and then finally your pure exam. The challenges that we have with most of the certifications today is, one, they're vendor monolithic, they're tool specific, or if you get into the general testing exams, I got to say they're all compromised.
Yeah.
Just this last weekend on Facebook, there was a gentleman who was posting that you could go and download all the exam questions for a bunch of exams, and they were tool exams and they were general industry exams. And because of this, the value of those credentials is dramatically diminished. You look at the CISSP, the people who have it take steps to protect the value of that credential. And as a result, it is actually one of the highest respected and highest compensated credentials that are available on the market today. On the other hand, I got to say, I'm going to pick on HP in this case. You pick up the HP Load Runner exam or a QTP exam. You can go and from probably 15 or 20 different sources, you can download the exam questions where literally